IPE Global actually started around a discussion or an idea. It was after one of the alumni get-togethers of the London School of Economics that a few of us were sitting down and discussing what could be a possible area for advisory services in times to come, where there is, in our view, a gap, where there is perhaps potential or a requirement. And we came across a couple of ideas. One, of course, was that at that particular time, and perhaps that gap is there even now, there were a number of these high-end consulting companies which were really looking at the big picture, were looking at policy level work. But more often than not, they were actually, while they were doing good work at the policy level, but more often than not, they were actually disconnected with what was happening at the ground level. It's very easy for a high-end policy advisor to say that to increase the GDP or to grow your company or to grow the country, you need to do things like user charges, doing away with tariffs, doing away with subsidies, etc. But when it comes down to actually the ground level implementation, there are a lot of challenges on the field which very often they are disconnected with. At the other end, you have a number of small and medium-sized NGOs working at the ground level who are doing good work in the areas where they are, whether it's in education or in health or in skills. But again, that work is not really feeding into the policy decision or policy work, and very often it's disconnected with being able to replicate that work in other parts. So we felt that there is this huge gap between policy and actually ground level implementation, and we felt that a few of us could get together and try and address that gap and maybe provide advisory services right from advisory to actually ground level implementation, so that based on the experience that we have on policy, we could implement and improve the ground level implementation, and based on the lessons learned and experience that we pick up at the ground, we could again feed that back into policy and improvise the policy. So that's one of the concepts or ideas around which we started IPE. The other thing that happened at that particular time, and I'm talking about 1998, is that India had gone through major reforms of decentralization. Under the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, suddenly from the powers being centralized with the federal government, there was a lot of decentralization and more powers and functions and roles and financial autonomy was being given to the states as well as the local bodies and the panchayat. So we saw a lot of this decentralization happening. At the same time, we felt that there was not enough capacity for either the states or the local bodies or the Panchayat Raj under the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment to actually address this challenge of decentralization. So we felt that we could also position ourselves as somebody who could really look at decentralization and the entire capacity building around that. With that, these two concepts in mind, we really set up IPE. We didn't really at that stage, I'll be frank, we didn't have this long-term vision, plan or a mission statement in place, but we said let's try and see how we can really make a difference. We felt that this was the best way to work with the government, work with the bilateral and multilateral agencies, but at the same time have the USP or the advantages of working with them but from outside the government, where we could really get involved in making an impact, but at the same time not really get involved in the day-to-day bureaucracy or the issues around that. So that's how we started. Our objective, of course, was to be able to make an impact on the ground, whether it was through policy, whether it was through decentralization, whether it is towards working on the field, but to make an impact on the ground and change the lives of people, improve the lives of people across the world. We started, of course, with India at that stage, and I'll be frank, we were really limiting ourselves to India because this space was untested and untried at that point of time, and whatever work was being done by international aid agencies and donors was at that particular time dominated by international consulting companies. We actually started small and called ourselves Infrastructure Professionals Enterprise, with the view that we will look at policy around infrastructure and try to address the gaps and issues there. We started with just 4 people. We had no clients. We just had this desire and passion to actually make change happen and have an impact on the ground. We started in financial management and urban reforms. At the same time, we also realized that the London School of Economics had set up a consulting arm called Enterprise LSA. Being alumni from the London School of Economics, we immediately contacted them and signed an initial MOU with them, which actually gave us that positioning to start with, that yes, we do, if required, can get the backing of the world-class quality of the London School of Economic professors. So we started with that, but over a period we realized that while there was a lot of work happening at the government level, because of funding and issues, they were not able to come up with big ticket items. We did some very innovative work in urban reforms, a lot of which actually fed into the various missions set up at the government at a later stage, be it smart city, be it the urban renewal mission, etc. We did things around accounting reforms, we did things around improving solid waste management collection, we did things around improving the fiscal condition of local bodies, how do we involve community into decision taking. So we did a lot of this innovative work, and I'm talking about work which we did nearly about 20 years ago, because today everybody is doing a lot of this work and they're part of the missions, but we were the first to really start thinking on these lines 20 years ago. We soon realized that the international aid agencies, the World Bank, USAID, DFID, EU, they are the ones who really tie up with the government and do a lot of this big ticket work. So we started positioning ourselves in trying to get into these assignments as well. We, like every small company, we had a lot of issues in the beginning because we didn't have the size, we didn't have the scale, we didn't have the expertise, we didn't have the credibility or the experience to be doing this. So we initially started partnering with some of the international companies, and at that particular time most of this work or sector was actually dominated by companies either from Europe or from USA or Australia. So we started partnering with them, and we soon realized that actually we had the advantage of not only having being able to get good professionals onto our within our entity, but we were able to get people who understood the ground level situation. Because when we talk about issues around poverty, issues around education, around health issues, the challenges that are there, challenges of working in a developing country, probably people with our kind of background are able to address and understand those issues much better than, say, consultants flying in from Europe or the US or Australia, etc. So we realized over a period that we were able to provide high quality consulting. We never compromised on quality, we never compromised on making sure that our work resulted in an impact and not just ended up being a report like many other consultants were doing. We started with urban and finance, but then we realized that there was a lot of potential in other sectors like health, like education, governance, climate change, environment, skills, and we slowly started branching out into these sectors as well. One good thing that we did right in the beginning was we did not limit ourselves to a particular donor. We diversified our portfolio. We worked for DFID, who are major clients. We worked for USAID, we worked for the World Bank, for the Asian Development Bank. So we were doing two things. We were expanding our sectors and we were expanding our client base. So we were not putting all our eggs into one basket. The third thing that we realized after the first 7 or 8 years, which I think was our turning point as well, that we realized that the expertise that we had developed in India, working in a developing country like India, was very applicable to the international market of developing countries. What we are doing in India is very applicable to South Asia, whether it's Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, Nepal, or Africa. The same kind of challenges that we have here, challenges around poverty, challenges around slow decision taking, challenges around corruption, challenges around inaction or not good institutional structures in place. The same challenges are there in other developing countries as well, and the lessons that we learned from India were quite applicable to other countries as well. So we started branching out and looking at the global market of developing countries as well. So we really structured our growth around three areas. One was expanding our sectors, the second was expanding our client base, and the third was finally expanding our geographies. So that's how we started expanding. Sometime around 2014, we said that if we really want to be seen as a global company, we must also get under our scope some non-Indian consultants or have a foot in some of the other countries as well. So we acquired Triple Line Consulting Company, a 20-year-old British consulting company, which is based in London. That's immediately gave us a track record as well as the team of about 30 professionals based out of London. We set up offices in Africa. We set up an office in Nairobi, an office in Addis Ababa. Then we expanded to other parts of the world. We went into Southeast Asia. We set up an office in Myanmar, set up an office in Manila. Then of course Dhaka and Nepal as well. We've got offices. So we then started moving out into other geographies as well. One of our USPs has always been that we've been able to attract and retain some of the best quality consultants. Bulk of our consulting team comprises of experts from India, and I can tell you that they are some of the best experts in the world, because not only are they academically very sound, but they have the India experience, which in the development sector world is very, very applicable. So we were able to really take our south expertise into other parts of the world as well. The initial board of directors of IPE actually comprised of a few very senior retired alumni from the London School of Economics and me. They were more mentors, but people who came with very sound experience of having either worked in the government or worked with the international aid agencies, and we used to really sit down as a group and try and identify what are the areas of gap, where should we try and pitch ourselves, where is it that we can make a difference by working. So that's how we really set up IPE. Over a period, of course, we got in more people, we got in staff from other consulting companies, from NGOs, from donors, and today we are a staff strength of about 1100 professionals. We've divided ourselves into different verticals. Each vertical is headed by a very capable head of the practice. We've got very capable CEOs who are running our overall India operations, running our UK operations, as well as running Africa operations. Very early in our work, we realized that what we were really doing was working on the advisory space. In our early days, we got mistaken by some of our clients and others, thinking that if we've called ourselves infrastructure professionals, are we really an infrastructure company? So while we were giving advisory into the infrastructure space, but we were not really a brick and mortar construction kind of a company. At the same time, we also, when we set up IPE, we were really thinking of just India to start with. But when we started going outside India and working across the world, we thought that it's time for us to really change our name. And we really retained the initials of the original company, but we called ourselves IPE Global. The logo itself, of course, represents the globe, as well as the fact that we want to not just look at the financial aspect of any entity, but look at the social and economic aspects as well. For us, that's equally important. As part of our logo, we set up the tagline of expanding horizons, enriching lives, and that's what IPE really stands for. We did a rough calculation of the number of people who we've really been able to impact in a positive way through our work, and IPE has done more than 850 projects across the world, and we've covered over 300 million people who've really benefited directly or indirectly from the various assignments that we've been doing. Our USP really is first of all, of course, people. We've been able to attract and retain some of the best quality people who are very relevant to the space that we are working in. It's not just good people, but good people who understand the ground level situation and reality. Our second USP, of course, is the south expertise and experience we get, where we are able to really export or use the very relevant experience that we have here and take it into other developing countries. our other sort of USP which would always be there is that we don't just limit ourselves to the terms of reference, or we're not like a consultancy firm which would really want to just limit itself to making reports. We go that extra mile. We go that to make sure that whatever work we are doing does have an impact at the end of the day, and for that, if we have to go beyond our terms of reference, we readily do that. We would also probably say that we are a company which is neither too small nor too large, and as a result we are able to very easily integrate our operations globally and make sure that we are able to transfer our expertise to our other offices as well, whether it's expertise required from our international offices or expertise and experience required to be given to the other offices. Another USP that we have is that the work that we do, we are able to scale up that work very fast. We are a very flexible and light organization. We are able to start a project and within weeks from the time a client wants us to do, because we have a strong bench strength as well as a very strong database of consultants who we can hire immediately as and when we require. We are able to aggregate projects as well, so we may not be able to get all the expertise in-house ourselves, because you may have a different set of people working at a policy, but you might also want to be really working at the ground level with community, which requires a totally different set of people. So we are able to aggregate multi-dimensional and project teams very fast, and then sort of do a strong project management around that. For IPE, making an impact and changing lives of people is utmost important. So our vision, even as we go forward, is to continue doing that. That for us is our first priority. We will continue trying to work on projects which have an impact. For us, we also work on projects with very low margins, or even projects without margins, as long as they are making an impact. So we will continue doing that. Our vision requires us, and we would want to be seen as a global firm which is not only working in India but across the world in making change happen. We will be investing more in technology, because like this sector and other sectors, there is a lot of technology based solutions which are coming up. We would like to continue investing in technology. We will grow both through organic and inorganic growth, and we would like to continue making this an employee owned company, and where employees are owners of the company. I'd like to welcome all of you who are joining IPE, and I would only like to sort of add here that you've got enough examples around you at IPE where people have actually been with us for 15 years, 17 years and for a fairly long time. We are a flexible organization where merit is very important. So if you're really wanting to look at a career where you are recognized for the kind of work you do, IPE is the right place for you. We are very flexible. We are very open in terms of giving responsibility. So if somebody who wants to learn and take on challenges and opportunities, you won't really need to wait. You will immediately get those opportunities as long as you're able to deliver them well. We are a company which would like to encourage entrepreneurs. So if you're really looking at being an entrepreneur within a larger umbrella, IPE is the right place for you to be. If you're really looking at, you might have your qualification, educational qualification in a particular sector, but if you're looking at also opportunities across sectors in the development world, we are happy to provide those opportunities both in India and overseas. We have a young professionals program as well, young leadership program as well. We would look at identifying and taking on some young leaders who can then be our next level of leaders within IPE. So all those options are open for you. We second some of our people into other offices as well. So besides working in other sectors, you can also look at opportunities in other parts of the world.